Silent Hill 2 Remake. This game is a masterpiece. Straight up 10 out of 10 game. It's my game of the year for sure, even over Astrobot, which was also a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. And I'm proud to say that I've always had faith in this game, unlike literally everyone else. I knew this game was gonna be amazing. I mean, there was no way it could be bad. At least that's how I saw it. Everyone else seemed so dead set that it was gonna be bad. And I don't even understand how. People really thought this game was going to be bad. And man, do I feel so vindicated. It all started when the game was announced at the Silent Hill transmission 2 years ago. Man, they opened that transmission with the trailer for Silent Hill 2 Remake. And I was convinced from the get-go. I was in. Especially with that one snippet of gameplay we saw, with James walking in the town with all the fog. But of course, so many people were immediately super pessimistic, because Silent Hill fans, they just can't enjoy anything. There was especially a lot of dissent for the fact that it was going to be Bloober Team who was making the game. This was speculated for some time, and people just really don't like Bloober.
Mary?
Then came that combat trailer that people really didn't like. And I understand that it totally does not convey the tone of the game, but I still like the little snippets of gameplay and the overall visual style of the game. Things really turned around though with the gameplay that we saw earlier this year at the Silent Hill transmission that came after State of Play. This is where some people really got sold on the game, seeing raw gameplay. It definitely made me even more hyped than I already was. More and more as we saw of the game, people got more and more into it, especially with that story trailer that remade the original Silent Hill 2 trailer.
James? Honey? Did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel?
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place.
Just put the gun to their head.
You can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
You should see your face, Jane.
Let go!
I'm sorry, Laura, but I can't let you just run around this place. You might get hurt.
Hurt by what?
This place is different from what I remember. I don't think she's here anymore.
This whole town. Might be best if you just get out of here.
Yeah, you're right.
You said you took everything. But you forgot that videotape we made.
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So you are Maria.
I am. If you want me to be.
How do you know about Mary?
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
Doesn't matter who I am.
I am here for you, James. See? I'm real.
I mean, the way I saw it, this was guaranteed to be a Game of the Year nominee. Because it's Silent Hill 2. I mean, it just is Silent Hill 2. It is one of the most iconic games of all time. I mean, most aspects were guaranteed to be good. The story was guaranteed to be a 10 out of 10. Having Akira Yamaka and Masahiro Ito doing soundtrack and art direction again made those categories guaranteed to be incredible. The gameplay didn't necessarily have to be all that great. I mean, it's a survival horror game. Survival horror has historically always had jankiness to it. I mean, hell, the gameplay and especially the combat of the original game is super janky, so this could only be an improvement. The only potential problem that could happen was with the technical aspects, like whether it would run well or if it would have bugs and glitches, and immediately it became clear that the game runs amazingly, even on the fidelity mode on PS5, which is kind of rare. I feel like the fidelity modes for Alan Wake 2 and even Resident Evil 4 were not all that great, but the performance here, even on that fidelity mode, is incredible. So yeah, and now when the reviews came out, it came as a surprise to so many people that the game was indeed incredible. Meanwhile, I just felt super vindicated. I mean, throughout that whole campaign for the game, I just didn't see any real criticisms. It was all just comparisons to the original, which, if you want everything to be just like the original, just play the original game. This is clearly not for you. I mean, you can have your preferences and stuff, but I don't really see how those comparisons affect this specific game as a game. For example, Resident Evil 3 Remake. A lot of people tear that game down, and yeah, as a remake, it really does not improve too many aspects of the original and definitely cuts out a hell of a lot, but as a game on its own, it's still a great game, and I feel like a lot of people don't acknowledge that at all. The only legitimate criticisms that I could see were people talking about the jankiness of the animations and the movements, and that is something I could actually agree with. But again, I don't really see that as that much of a problem, especially in the vein of survival horror. And those problems still kind of exist. If I had to pick at the game and see any real problems, I would say that there is a bit of jank, especially in the hit detection, but that's still just me grasping at straws to try and find a problem, which I just don't want to do. I don't want to dissect the game to see what's wrong with it. I just take it as it is, and what it is incredible. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't even played the original Silent Hill 2. I mean, if they were easy to play and available on modern consoles, I would have played them all by now, trust me. And it always struck to me how much I enjoy the Resident Evil franchise. It's one of my favorite game franchises of all time, and I've played all the main games. But looking at Silent Hill, I always thought that Silent Hill as a concept is way more up my alley. It's a much more psychological game with a lot more focus on the horror aspect, and the art direction in general is just so damn good. It's got those David Lynch-esque qualities that make Alan Wake so damn good. That being said, I have watched playthroughs of the original game, so I have somewhat of an idea how accurate this game is. And I'm so glad that this game actually decides to take liberties and very much improves a lot of aspects of the original. That was very pleasantly surprising to see. If you haven't played the game at all yet, I won't spoil anything in this part of the video, but if you're at all a fan of survival horror, you should absolutely play it. It is one of the best survival horror experience. No, it is the best survival horror experience I've ever played. I played it on hard mode, and that is absolutely the way it should be played. This game's hard mode is one of the most relentless gaming experiences. I usually find somewhat of a comfort in survival horror. Like, it's stressful, but a good kind of stress. You know? It's almost cozy in a way. This game is not cozy at all. This game has you with a sense of dread and impending doom. Of every encounter is a fight for your life. One enemy, if you're not playing at the top of your game, can ruin you. You will always be nervous about the amount of ammo and the amount of healing items you have. And I've watched people play this game on normal, and that is just not the case on normal. Normal mode feels like a difficulty catered for people who have played video games but maybe haven't played survival horror. Hard mode definitely feels like if you love survival horror, if you've played a lot of survival horror, if you're a pro at survival horror, this is what you've always wanted. A super intense situation where you're always stressed out and worried about your items. There were times where I had to take a break because my heart rate was going up so high. The enemies are freaky and I just don't want to go anywhere near them. The environments are insane. This game has the best atmosphere I've ever seen in a game. This game's atmosphere is just nuts. So much detail, so immersive, so harrowing. Again, fills you with a constant state of dread. The puzzles in this game are pretty good. I turned it up to hard difficulty, which made me nervous because I know classic Silent Hill puzzles have you taking out notepads and writing stuff down, really egging your brain. But in this case, I was surprised that it wasn't too difficult, really. Some of the puzzles are really straightforward and easy, and they're generally all really fun to handle. What ended up happening most of the time, I felt, was I would always get most of the puzzle and then have to guess or process of elimination and what the rest of the puzzle's answer was. There was a few times where it was a bit unclear what something meant, or there was just one specific thing that you had to think about doing that I didn't think of. For example, there's this one puzzle where you have to input a 4-digit code, but when deciphering the riddle that it gives you, I ended up with a 3-digit code, which really made me lose my mind and try all these different configurations when all I had to do was put a 0 in front of the number I got. Little stuff like that kind of messed me up on some of them, but overall I got the gist of most of them. The story is phenomenal, of course. I mean, it's Silent Hill 2. And they do take some liberties in the story, add some new scenes and character interactions, and I wish, honestly, that they did more. I wish we got more with certain characters. There's only really this one character that you get a lot more with in this version of the game. But yeah, it's a great psychological story. Something that separates it from something like Resident Evil is that it is so human. A lot of the characters in Resident Evil, they're just action heroes and stuff. That's what made Ethan Winters so special, was that he was just a dude. But this game, all the characters are so fascinating, and you just want to learn more about them. Why they act this way, why are they here, and the way all these cutscenes are presented is incredible. The shot choice, the music, every time one of those tracks came on during a cutscene, it just ascended everything to a whole new level.
I'm looking for someone.
The dialogue and the performances are incredible. The acting is so good, and there's a lot to decipher from little details like facial movements in the characters. The juxtaposition between being so stressed out during gameplay and then the relief and immediate intrigue that comes with a new cutscene is incredible. I mean, the game is just perfect, man. It just shot up so quickly to becoming one of my favorite games of all time. And if you haven't played it yet, go and play it, please. It's so good. Now, for people who have played the game, let's delve into the game bit by bit and talk about all these different sections and the story, spoilers and stuff. We start the game off with the iconic bathroom scene. This is super effective as we immediately establish the tone, this lighting and this setting and this character of James Sunderland. I will say I do like in the original how he passes his hand over his face and doesn't actually touch his face. That feels way more freaky. Whereas here, touching his face is something normal people do, but passing your hand over your face, that's definitely indicative that this person has lost it.
Mary. Could you really be in this town?
This music is incredible. This opening bit is so ethereal, so eerie almost. And then transitioning to this really sad song as we hear the opening bits of the letter and James explaining why he's here.
I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
Now what's interesting is we get the only cutscene to gameplay transition in the entire game, and it's really smooth, but you won't see this for the rest of the game, as anytime you enter or exit a cutscene, it's all done through fade outs or cuts. Most games these days just do smooth transitions in between, so it's interesting here it's only done once. I assume this is because some sort of technical limitation, could also just be a stylistic choice. There are definitely parts in the game where you can see that it transitions to the same shot as when you enter gameplay, but it does transition through a cut. And here we go, just walking to Silent Hill. This forest is so intimidating. It's very detailed and it feels very alive and spooky. I wasn't expecting the area that I knew that was the most safest to be really off-putting. We find the first save point, which are these red squares at this well, and this is the type of stuff that really makes Silent Hill special. This mysterious red square that just keeps popping up, and it's not even some weird gameplay thing that's just ignored, like save points in Resident Evil. There is some sort of story significance here. We head to the graveyard when we get our first scene with Angela. I really love the way she's portrayed in this game. I think in the original, the performance of this character was probably overall the best, and while there are aspects of that version of the character that I would have liked to see more of here, I still think this is a great portrayal of Angela. I think the younger version really works well, and her actress Gianna Keel is really great.
I'm looking for my my mother. It's been so long since I've seen her.
Also, the actor for James, Luke Roberts, is incredible. Already, you get such a range in his performance, as in the opening, you get this really gritty and gravelly performance.
Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago. So then why am I looking for her?
Whereas wherever you see him interacting with people, you get this really warm and kind side to him.
Hey, it's okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
This scene is really sad, as it just feels like two lost souls just looking for their loved ones.
I thought my father and brother were here, but I can't find them either.
This is definitely one of my favorite scenes in the entire game. Continuing on to Silent Hill, I really like how they kept the length of this opening walking segment, really building up the tension to getting to Silent Hill. And from a story perspective, James is just getting all these red flags, but you can tell he has made a committed decision to making it to this town, no matter the dangers that may lie ahead. We come across our first glimpse of the past, which are these collectibles that reference the original game. Definitely seems like there's maybe more to these glimpses than just a simple nod. Arriving at the town, we get a map and we go around the place. We eventually encounter our first enemy. Like an idiot, James goes to explore, and he enters a house where he comes across our first lying figure. The way these guys are designed in this game is really cool, as they look like they're in gimp suits and they're wearing these platformers. Already the combat feels really impactful as you smack it with your wooden plank and stomp on it. Again, James's actor goes off here. Every yell that he lets out when he gets hit, when he's hitting something, it's like so visceral and real. It's nuts. We of course get the radio, which we can use to signify enemies, and we make our way through the town, and this is where the game really opens up, and we can enter a lot of cool places just exploring around, getting notes, resources, and even key items. I just love the vibe of all these lying figures walking around the streets, and you can just duck into a building and see them in the fog walking away. The fog is just such an incredible effect. Here we work to solve the jukebox puzzle at Neely's bar, which requires us to find pieces of a record, glue them together, as well as find a button and a coin to use for the jukebox. After finishing the puzzle, we get led to the Woodside Apartments. I love the trophy that pops up here, nice and cozy, which is exactly what I felt entering this area. This is definitely one of the coziest areas in the game for sure. The warm lighting at this reception area, knowing that there's a save point there, you just feel so safe in that area. Here we go, now we got a chunky segment here as we get to explore 3 floors of this apartment. This level design is just really satisfying to go through, making your way to every room you can go, getting resources, fighting enemies, and eventually finding key items to unlock more areas. It's classic survival horror. We go in a room and find a flashlight, finally, and we get a mother of all jump scares as we get introduced to the mannequins. These guys are so scary, and they've got the moves, dodging you, throwing hands even though they don't have hands. You'll always encounter these guys just hiding somewhere in some corner or under something, always ready to scare you. And your radio does not go off when you're near them if they're standing still. These guys will scare you so much throughout the game. They definitely did with me. It's a good way to do jump scares, integrating it into the enemy design, and also having it be avoidable if you're careful. We reach to find this key and we get introduced to Laura, who annoyingly steps on James's hand. What a brat. We go around to get the key, which unlocks the 2nd floor area. And I remember going through a hallway and thinking, yo, Pyramid Head is just gonna show up any second now. I turn the corner and there at the end of the hallway is some glowing red figure. It freaked me the hell out. I was not expecting to be freaked out by Pyramid Head, especially given how cool his design is. But here he is at the end of this hallway behind these bars just staring at you, just standing there menacingly. The radio goes off so hard here that even when you turn off the radio, it still goes off anyway. Which is probably a glitch, but that kind of actually works really well in the context. Given how powerful Pyramid Head is, he just activates your radio. Though it is probably a glitch given how whenever you do have another encounter with him, the radio doesn't go off. We find a gun and eventually meet Eddie. This scene is pretty similar to the original, as Eddie is just struggling here, throwing up, and James comes in, giving us a little light introduction to the character before James heads back out there. I like the detail of Eddie being visibly disappointed when James goes off on his own instead of working with Eddie to get out.
I need to find someone.
Oh.
In this apartment segment, we find 3 coins in order to do this coin puzzle. Definitely one of my favorite puzzles in the game. Now, what's interesting is the final part of the puzzle asks you who is to blame for the death of the woman, as you learn in the story as you solve the puzzle. And you can actually input either one of the 3 coins, which is interesting. And I wonder if this impacts your ending at all. This gets you the key to room 201, which is where we'll meet Pyramid Head once again. They definitely made this Pyramid Head scene less graphic as to avoid confusion on its interpretation. And again, Pyramid Head is so freaky here. His weird PS2 movements here were so weird. And the fact that he reacts to James shooting him, but almost in a way in which he's mocking him, like, oh, you shot me, and then just immediately goes back to his menacing stance before just walking away. We go through this sinister red door and cross over to another building, which is also subtly how we enter the other world. Here we solve this clock puzzle by finding all the different hands and moving them according to the note. As we're here, we find Angela once again, and we get the iconic mirror scene. This is easily one of my favorite scenes in the game, and the soundtrack again, Promise, that's such a good track. It is incredible. And the performances from these two, again, is just breathtaking. I get so invested in this scene. The shot choice as well. That shot of the mirror is like ridiculous. How good it is. We get an immediate glimpse into how unstable Angela is, as her persona seems to switch on a whim. Very much confusing at first, but definitely understandable on a repeat playthrough, once you understand what her story is. We get her knife, which is added as a personal item, which are items that affect your ending depending on how much you inspect them. We finish up the clock puzzle and head around down, and we meet Pyramid Head once again, but now he's cool. I mean, look at that sword, dude. And the area of this fight is really cool as we're in the courtyard and it even starts raining and stuff. It's so sick. The siren comes on and he just waddles away. We go through the door and we are back in the safety of the fog. I love the kind of loop that happens where the fog and the town is really intense, and then once we go in a building, it's all nice and cozy. But at the other end of that segment, we're just so glad to be back outside again. Here we run into Laura once again, the kid who stepped on our hand.
Hey, it was you, wasn't it? You're the one who stepped on my hand.
Maybe I did.
She's holding a letter and then she says to James this.
You didn't love Mary anyway.
What?
Very interesting. Laura is really cute in this game. She's played by Evie Templeton, who is actually playing her in the movie as well. Which, by the way, when is that movie coming out? Give me a trailer, dude. I'm actually really hyped for that movie. I loved the first movie, and I love that Christoph Gans is coming back to do this one. If only we lived in an alternate reality where Christoph Gans wasn't busy on that Onimusha movie that got canceled anyway, so that he would have worked on Silent Hill Revelations, so that we would have gotten an at least decent representation of Silent Hill 3 in movie form. As we go through this Yo, every now and then you hear some woman gasp in your right ear. It is so freaky, and there is a reason for this. There is some context for this, which is really cool. We'll get to it later. We make it to Rosewater Park, where we suspect Mary is. We head out to the pier and find a woman. But this is not Mary, it's Maria. Maria is executed just perfectly in this game.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
The actress for Maria, who I'm not even gonna try to pronounce her name, she's fucking fantastic as both Maria and Mary.
I don't look like a ghost, do I? See? Warm.
Sorry, I got confused.
I straight up fell in love with Maria. Every scene she's in is just incredibly electric. Every dialogue that she has with James I'm so invested in. And I love the redesign of the costume. I think it's really great. I love how visibly uncomfortable James is every second he's around Maria, as she's making these very obvious advancements toward him. Just these little things she does with her voice and her demeanor is just like so effective.
I think I might know. I mean, there's this one place. Not far from here.
This moment in particular really makes me sad.
I need to find Mary.
Didn't you say she died?
Huh?
Just a great performance. You're gonna hear me say that so many times. Since Mary isn't here, Maria suggests a different special place that she could be in. Now we have Maria as this companion character. And I love how much in-game dialogue there is here, whether reacting to her actions, like smashing windows and stuff, which she really doesn't like.
Whoa! Hey! Why'd you do that? You think it'll stare back?
Going down Nathan Avenue, you do find the bowling alley, which is my least favorite change in the game, because the bowling alley was my favorite scene in the original. I'm not even joking. I loved the fun vibe of Eddie and Laura hanging out and then James coming in to deliver his iconic line.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
She said she was fine by herself. She said a fatso like me would just slow her down.
Forget you.
And I got baited hardcore here as I saw the bowling alley and I was so excited, but alas it was for naught, because they changed it up here. I do like these tidbits here, as for sure we get some alternate timeline type stuff.
But you know, you can wait outside if you want. I'll just look around the place.
Why would I want to wait outside?
I'll wait here. I hate bowling.
I didn't come here to play, you know.
Hurry back.
I thought you might not want to.
James, if you don't want me around anymore, you can just say it. Huh.
What is it?
Nothing. Just deja vu.
Now this kind of stuff, coupled with the fact that all the dead bodies are modeled after James, has led a lot of people to believe in this loop theory, where James is supposedly on this time loop, and where he keeps coming back to Silent Hill to relive the whole experience over and over and over again. And I gotta say, I just don't buy into this theory. I think it doesn't add anything, given that he has pretty much the exact same experience every time, and he doesn't remember anything, so I don't see why it helps his situation at all. It feels like it doesn't add to the story. If anything, it takes stuff away. All the characters having the exact same experience and dialogue every single time, just not remembering. And the person Eddie is killing, is that just James over and over? How do you not make that connection? That makes no sense. And this idea that every ending is canon up until Leave, where he finally breaks the cycle, that just doesn't make any sense, because that just devalues all the endings, because they are potentially very good ways to tie up the narrative. And all the notes and stuff that you can even find around dead bodies are clearly different people. They're not James. It just looks that way because that's what his version of Silent Hill looks like to him. Like with the monsters, they're made up because of the way he sees things and the way the town is presenting stuff to him. And given the way that James wants to be punished and is feeling guilty for his actions, it makes sense that he would perceive the dead bodies to be him. I don't think it has anything to do with some time loop theory. I think that's just making up stuff just to be cool. This isn't Alan Wake 2. There's no context for this in the narrative. So anyway, that's my commentary on the whole loop theory thing. Into the bowling alley, we can interact with this pizza, and we get a version of the line, which I was still very happy to see.
This town's full of monsters. Who could just sit here and eat pizza?
There's a room you can go into where James is getting bad vibes.
This room. There's something wrong with it. I think we should leave.
And in a later part of the game, when it gets all otherworldly and you come back around here, you get a Silent Hill 3 Easter egg as you get the cult symbol on the wall. Going up, we get this nice little Easter egg of Maria's original outfit. This is a very Last of Us type segment. Even the music during this whole segment is very Last of Us. As we're making our way, trying to progress through this neighborhood, crawling with monsters, and we're making our way through this gate. We get rid of our plank and upgrade it for this pipe. After we escape from the monsters, we end up with the best change and just the best scene in the entire game. Heaven's Night. This scene is just 11 out of 10. It's just so incredible. Because in the original game, this is just an area that you're in for like 15 seconds. You just go right through this area. There's no cutscene. Here there's like a whole 3-minute cutscene as we get to really get into James's and Maria's character.
What? Oh, come on, don't give me that look. I was just kidding.
I mean, the vibes here are insane. Just the music, it's so ethereal. It reminds me of the Roadhouse from Twin Peaks.
Then again, now that we're here, can't we stay? Just for a little while.
catch our breath before we head back out there.
And I love how Maria's facade drops a bit here, as we get this really genuine conversation with her and James.
Am I crazy? You know, for thinking she could be here.
Crazy is one word for it, I guess. I can think of another.
What's that?
Hopeful.
I mean, look at this lighting right now. Look how good Maria looks. This is so awesome. She invites James for a drink.
To hope. Undying.
But James refuses, and just look at his face, man. This is nuts, this facial capture, dude. It just says so much about a potential drinking problem that James has. And I love how the game invites you to stay around here for a bit, to just calm down and collect your breath, just take in the vibes. I love this so much. Like, I don't want to leave this place every time I make it here.
Let me know when you want to move on.
You gonna dance for me, big guy? I'd pay to see that.
Yet another completely original scene with this park that Maria introduces James to. Here we come across this statue, and Maria tells this legend of this woman who was across the bay, and this man came across the lake every time to bring her food and company. Even when the waters are rough, he kept going, and eventually became his downfall, but still the woman waited for him. Again, tying into this hope undying theme. But James just did not take any of that in. He's upset that Mary isn't even here. And I love the way this frustration is played out.
She's not here.
What?
She's not here. And why would she be? I don't even remember this place.
We hear Laura scream, and we head over to the theater where James heads in.
Not much of a movie fan anyway.
Now this is what replaces the bowling alley scene. One thing I hate is how the dialogue between Eddie and Laura is turned into a gameplay dialogue that you just overhear, and you could easily just skip it by going on the main path and pushing this thing over, which stops the dialogue dead in its tracks. That's really annoying. We head into the theater room, and Eddie is there alone eating ice cream. He's not even eating pizza, come on. They went for a lot more of a darker tone with this scene, with Eddie seeming a lot more sinister as he's just watching the static on the screen, disgustingly eating this strawberry ice cream. I do like this detail of how offended he gets when James brings up his appetite. I don't know, man, I just really love the vibe of that original bowling scene, and I think just a lot of that charm is completely missing from this theater replacement. I wish they let themselves be more campy here. We meet back up with Maria and follow Laura into the hospital. I love the vibes here with the sunset peering through the windows. It's just an incredible vibe as we try to find our way up to Laura. We eventually get an elevator working, heading up to the second floor, and it's nighttime and it starts raining. The vibes are just incredible. Maria is not feeling so good, unfortunately. James suggests that she takes a rest at this bed, and again, this scene and just the vibes here between these two characters is just legendary. Every scene with these two is incredible.
So comfy.
Just the way this shot is framed, just seeing James's face and Maria's confident and yet confrontational voice.
I wanted to ask you, what if you can't find Mary? What will you do?
Every time she speaks to him, he really does get really uncomfortable.
I haven't really thought about that.
Get back soon, okay?
You can actually come back later in this segment to check up on her, and this affects you working towards or against the Maria ending.
James, thanks for checking up on me. It's very sweet of you.
This hospital segment is really cool. We also get introduced to the nurses. These enemies are really intense, super tanky, and those attack patterns are insane. You have to dodge perfectly like 3 times in a row. It's nuts. Luckily, we get the shotgun and this thing hits. It packs such a punch, has such power behind it. I love it. For this, we need to find 3 wristbands around the hospital to complete this puzzle in the director's office. I love the notes here that we get in the hospital talking about these patients that were making contact with the other world, and the doctor's trying to find out what was going on and try to diagnose and help these people. It's very interesting stuff. We eventually solve the puzzle and make our way to the rooftops, where we get the mother of all jump scares with Pyramid Head. You just open the door, he's just standing there, and we get a hard cut to this cutscene where he grabs James and chucks him down. Luckily, this brings James right close to Laura, where he confronts her and they have a conversation. Laura reveals she knew Mary when she met her at the hospital a year ago, which conflicts with the 3-year timeline. And James gets very upset about this.
Stop lying! Laura, I'm sorry.
Fine, don't believe me.
This upsets Laura and she sets him up, going to this room and locks him in.
See a fart face.
Laura! Laura!
And this is where we fight Flesh Lip. What a name. This is a really cool boss fight as this cage hangs down from the roof. You can actually shoot its hand that's grabbing up to make it fall down so you can get some extra hits in. Basically, you have to break down the cage so that you expose the flesh part and then hit that a lot. Once you defeat him, you get taken out by this other thing, and we get this awesome transition to the other world hospital. This place looks so cool, straight out of The Evil Within, especially with the wheelchair in the middle there, so Evil Within. Here we have this intense puzzle box with chains and all these different locks and stuff. We go around solving different puzzles, learning the codes, and finding the keys to open up this box. When we do, we get this new elevator button. This is where we get the little game show part.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in.
Going down, we find these rings that we can use. We also run into Maria. Anyway...
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? I was almost killed back there. I have never been so scared in my whole life. All you care about is that dead wife of yours.
We head back around and finally finish this puzzle, but Maria is getting bad vibes. And she's right too, because we eventually run into Pyramid Head. And this chase sequence is a little bit goofy as Maria and James are running so damn slow. I wish they sped up the running animations here a lot more, because it really looks like they're just going out for a light jog. And it's very jarring for James to all of a sudden be cutting ahead of Maria when it transitions to the cutscene, and for him to be running at full speed. Why can't he do that in gameplay? We get to this elevator and it shuts as Maria is trying to get through, and she gets impaled by Pyramid Head, who has this really cool spear. James falls down to his knees devastated. And I love the effectiveness of just having the sound of the elevator playing here. And then when it opens back up, we get that theme that played at the jukebox, and it keeps playing during gameplay as well. Now the town has turned into the other world. And I love this final note we get here of this doctor questioning whether it is right to even try and heal the patients as they seem comfortable in their version of reality. I think it's very interesting, and it's definitely my favorite note in the game. Exploring the otherworld town is really cool. I love the way this looks, the rain, the lighting, it's incredible. We're trying to find Laura, and we make our way through this town. This is really hard segment, especially on hard difficulty, where we have to make it through one of 2 points that are just stocked up with enemies. It's insane. We get this Alan Wake 2 sequence where we get some mysterious call. Nobody's on the other side of the line apparently, but we get this wrench which allows us to open up a passageway through the tunnel, and we get these weird hanging guys that are really freaky. This definitely looks like something straight out of The Evil Within, which in itself was inspired, of course, from Silent Hill. We end up back at Rosewater Park where we meet Angela again, and I believe this is another new original scene, which helps because the only other encounter with her comes way later, and it would have been a bit too long in between scenes with her at the apartment. And I love this disconnect between the 2 characters here, as James is clearly not understanding her situation. But once you do know what's going on with Angela, her reactions to certain things James says, and him touching her definitely makes so much sense. It makes it all feel so tragic. We find the key to the Historical Society, which is up the road, and again, the music playing here as we're just going down the long walk is just really effective. Enter the Historical Society, we get all these cool paintings and stuff, one of Pyramid Head, which is really cool. And by the way, there's like so many things in this game that point to Pyramid Head not being exclusive to James. I don't know what people were talking about this whole time. To me, Pyramid Head is clearly just some entity that exists in the town and not specifically for James. That's how I saw it anyway. We go down these long stairs, some Snake Eater stuff right here. Just needing a nice little lyrical track playing. We are in the depths of hell right now. It's very Dante's Inferno as we make our way through the different levels of hell, and the only way to get out is to go deeper. We jump down a bunch of holes, and I gotta say, The Evil Within definitely did this a lot cooler. Just saying. We end up at this prison, and we meet Eddie at the cafeteria.
Ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head and pow.
And he's unhinged right now. And I love the way the actor Scott Haining plays this. It's very unsettling.
You should see your face, James. I was just joking. The guy was dead when I got here. I got you, didn't I? Well, anyway, I better get going.
Wait. You're gonna go out there alone?
Yeah.
Now in the prison area, the basic structure of this one goes, we find this puzzle in the courtyard where we have to use these weights to open these different doors. And each one of these segments has a new weight which allows us to open a new segment. This place is so dark and the atmosphere is really intense. This place is very scary. We also have these 4-legged guys, which are so freaky and also so annoying. Just coming up, attacking you from the roof, and then just disappearing. Luckily, to counter that, we have a rifle now, which also packs a hell of a punch. Eventually, going through all the rooms, we unlock the final weight, which allows us to do the final puzzle, which is this really cool executioner puzzle as we get these different stories that we place together, and we have to figure out who among them is justified. Once we do, we pull this noose and we head even further into the depths. This is where we get the Angela sequence, and I love the setting of this where everything has turned into a house. We get this newspaper that implies that Angela killed her father, and we get a run-in with him in the form of Abstract Daddy.
Daddy!
And I love the sequence in which we fight him. It's not just a straight up boss fight. There are segments to this where we do some damage and then he disappears and we explore this demented maze. Destroy these TVs, find these little hiding spots where Angela used to hide as a child. Finally defeating this man, we get this just really sad breakdown with Angela. There's something so visceral and real about the way she's delivering some of these lines.
I hate you. I hate you.
Cinematically and just story-wise in general, this is where the game just kicks it into high gear. Pretty much every cutscene from this point out just gets so intense. We head into the Labyrinth section of the game, which I didn't even remember was a thing from the original. But it's super cool. The way your map is slowly filling out as you explore. The idea that Pyramid Head is the minotaur of this labyrinth is just such a cool idea. This is a really cool setting. We go through this door and lo and behold, Maria is alive. And somewhat well, as her persona has seemed to completely changed. This is a very sinister scene and the actress plays it so well. It is so unsettling, her deadpan demeanor and look.
James? Honey? Did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel?
Maria?
You said you took everything. But you forgot that videotape we made. I wonder if it's still there.
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So you are Maria.
I am. If you want me to be.
All I want from you is an answer.
Doesn't matter who I am. I am here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
I don't know.
Well, if you happen to make up your mind, I'll be waiting.
I'll find some way to come back, I promise.
James doesn't know what's going on, but it seems now he's going to make a concerted effort to free Maria. Now we go through this labyrinth, which is composed of 3 different segments. The first, we're going through this area where there's a lot of these hanging dudes. And we have to find 3 different pieces to make a lighter from. I'm not a huge fan of this segment. And then there's the next segment, which I like even less, where we're just running through the dark in these tunnels, just going up all these ladders and stuff. But I do like when we eventually come across Pyramid Head, which I was not expecting him to come in to this type of gameplay. When you cut the bolt cutters and go down this ladder, Pyramid Head actually appears here for a second, which I totally missed on the first playthrough. The third segment is this little combat challenge, which I think is really cool, as we have to fight all these enemies in this room and either kill them or wait until the timer goes out. At the end of this, we have another encounter with Pyramid Head, as we learned that this weird wall will separate when Pyramid Head comes through. James finds the room Maria was in, and she is unfortunately dead again. This time from some sort of disease, just like Mary. And the way James grieves here definitely feels like it's more and so of the memory of Mary and less so about Maria.
Mary.
Coming back, we find Pyramid Head's sword lodged in the ground, and James drags it over to separate the wall. I love the music that plays here. It is so eerie and dark. And this imagery of James almost becoming Pyramid Head is really cool. We come to this sinister graveyard where we see the graves of this felon and Walter Sullivan, who we know is this maniac killer that we read about. This is a good way to get to the concept that everyone here has done something very bad to be tortured in this way, as we see the open graves of Angela, Eddie, and James. We jump down the hole and we meet Eddie once again, as he's even more unhinged. James knocks him out with some punch, and then we lead up to the boss fight, which I was surprised by. I genuinely wasn't expecting this. I thought they'd cut it, because it's very goofy, and it is still pretty goofy. Eddie just taking shots and bobbing and weaving. How's he moving that fast? Anyway, it's still actually a really fun fight, and I love the juxtaposition between Eddie and Angela. Eddie has been pushed to the edge to make all of these unjustifiable murders, whereas Angela is very justified in what she did, which leads us to believe that James is somewhere in the middle, where whatever he did is at the same time justifiable, but also not. We come to the lake and row across. This is very long and sets up this tension that this is it. This is the final segment. This is what we are here for. It also harkens back to the story that Maria told us at the park about the guy who rowed across the lake to see his love. And we come to the hotel, which is easily my favorite segment in the game. It's very cozy and very beautiful looking. You can easily see why this was Mary's definitive special place. And it's very Resident Evil. There's a lot of key items and puzzles introduced, with one main final puzzle in the center area that you're working towards. There's a lot of backtracking in between the different floors and trying to piece together how the different key items correspond to what puzzle and what items you need to combine and stuff. It's a very satisfying level design for a survival horror game. Mixing in all the different enemies that seem a lot tougher now, with some of them getting up even when I was sure they were dead. We meet Laura, and I really love this scene between James and Laura here. It feels really genuine and heartwarming.
You got any other things planned? I think I saw a dark room back there you could lock me up in.
No. I think you've had enough. For now.
Laura is super adorable. She reveals that she was good friends with Mary and that she wrote her a letter.
Me and Mary talked a lot about Silent Hill.
We read the letter, and it's cool to hear this in Mary's voice, as you get a sense of the bond that her and Laura formed when they were sick in the hospital.
I love you, Laura. I love you like my very own daughter. I wish things were different. I wish we could be happy together, like we talked about.
We also get this implication that Mary couldn't have died 3 years ago, as in the letter Mary acknowledges Laura's 8th birthday, and then Laura says that she turned 8 last week. Laura tells James that Mary wrote him a letter, but it's missing from the envelope, and she rushes off to try and find it. We go through this whole hotel segment trying to find these 3 figurines for this music puzzle. And again, I love how this takes us everywhere in the hotel. There's this one part where we have to go down to the basement and we get rid of all our items, which increases the tension. We finally complete the music box puzzle, which gains us entry to the 3rd floor. This is it. This is the culmination. This is where things get real. We enter room 312, which is our room. We input the videotape and watch. I love this shot of the camera dollying in to the screen. In the tape, we see Mary in the room years before, and when she starts coughing, we get another video inputted in that's very glitchy, and we were just able to make out none other than James using a pillow to kill his wife. This is a lot more visible to see than in the original. Felt like in the original was very hard to make out the image, whereas still I've seen some people not even be able to figure it out this time. Laura comes in, and look at his face right here as he has to tell her the truth, and they were just getting along before, and now this has completely destroyed that. As she takes out all her anger on James, just that whimper as she leaves, man, it's really sad. And just how completely lost James is at this revelation, as we fade out and then back in to see that the light has changed. We are now in the other world and James is still here in the chair, just gone. Eventually we get the scene with Angela, as the room is all lit up on fire. The scene is just incredibly sad and just devastating, as we come to these two characters at their complete lowest points. James has come to this realization and acceptance that what they came for isn't here. And then there's Angela, who just wants it to end.
James. Give me back the knife.
And just the greatest line right here.
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
And there's our confirmation that everyone sees everything differently. From what I understand, there's the 3 dimensions. There's just the normal Silent Hill, where it's just a normal town. This is one that Laura exists in and primarily sees. Then there's the fog dimension, of course, which does have monsters, but Laura can only see the people in the fog dimension. She can't see the monsters. Eddie exists in both, where apparently he can see the normal people as well, as he's worried about the cops on his tail, but he also sees the monsters in the fog dimension. And then of course there's the other world, which seems very much tailored to the specific person. For example, Angela always sees it on fire. We continue some more and find Maria, hung up and about to be executed by the 2 pyramid heads.
Leave us both the hell alone.
Just the pain from James's guttural scream here is just insane. The music, everything, the shot of the blood coming down Maria's face, it's so devastating. Then we have James talking about how he knows what you are and he doesn't need you anymore.
I know what you are. I know why I needed you. that it's all over now. I don't need you anymore.
Now, I feel like this can be interpreted two ways, that he's talking about Pyramid Head and how he needed him to punish him, but I think it also works as his realization of Maria as well. That at this point, she has died 3 times, and now maybe he recognizes that she is also there to punish him, and also there to be this version of Mary that he wanted her to be.
Don't you want to touch me?
He does say something similar to this in the Rebirth ending, I think?
I know what you are, Maria.
Anyways, we get this intense boss fight. This is some Dark Souls shit. As we have these 2 pyramid heads just attacking. This is so hard to get all their patterns right, to gain some distance, and in order to be able to do damage against them. You're fighting in such a small area, and their attacks are lethal. And they don't care if you're still in an animation, they're gonna attack you again and again. It's really tough on hard, but really rewarding when you finally manage to push through. They end up killing themselves, which is very cool. It makes for incredible imagery. You make your way through, and we have this hallway scene where we get a flashback of Mary talking angrily at James. She lashes out at him, very angry about her current situation, obviously being sick and dying.
Between the disease and the drugs, I look like a monster.
But if you stay here long enough, there's a turnaround where she apologizes and gets very emotional here, and just the performance here is insane. This is some sad stuff, dude. And whether or not you listen to this full dialogue also impacts your ending.
I didn't mean what I said. Please, tell me you'll be okay. Tell me I'm not gonna die. Help me.
Here we come to the final boss fight. The initial cutscene with Mary here also changes depending on what ending you got. For the Leave and In Water ending, it is very similar, as James comes to this realization that this version of Mary is actually Maria, whereas in the Maria ending, it seems to be a manifestation of Mary, who does not forgive him for what he did, especially after he tries to make up an excuse for what he did. This boss fight is really intense. It has 3 different phases, and here I straight up struggled on hard mode. When I got to that final phase, I was in critical condition, had no health items, and I tried my best. I had to try so many times. And also the item detection for picking up items here in this room is broken, dude. You have to be at such a specific point in order to pick up items. I straight up ran completely out of all types of ammunition and health. And luckily with my initial last-ditch effort to try and melee her, I did end up defeating her. She just lays there as if she was sick on her deathbed. So you make the final hit and you get your ending. So here I'm gonna actually rank all the endings. Ranking is fun, right? Let's rank all the different endings from least favorite to favorite. So my least favorite is actually the dog ending. It's a fun ending for sure. It's, you know, obviously a joke ending. I love how poorly rendered the dog is. It's very intentionally some PS2 dog. But yeah, it's very short, and like nobody would ever want to like do this on a serious full playthrough. Then next up, I would say the Rebirth ending. This one felt like it had so much potential. I know it's in the original as well, and you collect all these ritual items, but there's no real context or dialogue, except for one, which I thought was cool. When you pick up the second item at the mansion, Maria comments about like, what is that liquid? But there's no real context for James that he's learning anything with these items. You just get to this ending scene, and he says that he's found a way to save Mary, which is portrayed in a very sinister way. He played that fantastically.
There's a way. I can still bring her back.
What? No, that's not true.
But before I do, I need to kill that part of me that still clings to you.
And then have the ending cutscene where he's rowing through the lake to try and get to the old gods, which is super cool, tying into some stuff in Silent Hill 1 and 3. But then it just ends. It's like, no, I want to see what happens. I want to see this Elseworld storyline play out. Then there's the UFO ending. This one is just so funny, and I love how you get to it with collecting this gem from the store and using it whenever it vibrates at different locations. You eventually summon the UFO coming in, and you meet OG James. He is so disturbing looking. I love the silent movie dialogue going on here, and just the use of these different faces and stuff. It's so funny. Next up, I'm going to say the Bliss ending, which is a new ending for this remake. In this ending, you craft the White Claudia, a nice nod to the first Silent Hill, and you drink it. So when you get to room 312 and put in the videotape, James gets sucked into the tape.
Promise you'll take me again, James.
I promise.
And this is actually really sad, to me anyway. He just ends up in this video and he's happy here in this fake reality. It's called bliss, and it might be a reference to the Matrix where ignorance is bliss. And James has taken the blue pill in this instance and has chosen to live in this fake reality where he's happy with Mary. And just the cut back to the room where he's no longer there just really made me sad.
Everything's fine.
I think this is a really legitimate ending. It doesn't feel that jokey. I mean, it definitely feels weird and out of place, but it definitely feels a lot more valid than a lot of the other New Game Plus endings. Then I'm going to say the Leave ending. This one does feel a bit off because I think James just gets off the hook too easily, if that makes any sense. Like, it feels like there should be a little bit more acknowledgement of what he did, especially in this conversation with Mary. And I wish there was some added dialogue with him and Laura. I do like that we see him going up to her and giving her the letter. And the letter reading is really great, although it is noticeably a different direction than the original. Obviously, this actress could have pulled off that emotional delivery, but you can tell that they switch it up and save that for the hallway dialogue. Here her delivery is a lot more calm, and it makes sense because in the letter Mary said that she wasn't afraid of dying anymore. The letter is pretty much the exact same as the original, but I feel it's a little bit less effective here than in Water. Like, it's a bit too clean of an ending, if that makes any sense. It's a good ending, technically, of James and Laura just leaving, but something feels a bit off about it. Next up, I'm going to say the Maria ending. I just wish there was a little bit more done to this ending. I love in the initial cutscene where James tries to play it off like he did it a mercy killing to Mary. That made me feel very disgusting. It felt so sinister the way he was just lying to Mary like that.
You killed me, James.
I did. I couldn't bear to see you suffer.
And then he finds Maria, who was just spawned in, I guess, at Heaven's Night. He's a lot more confident around her now, extending his hand and directing her. Very different to how he's acted around her before.
What is this?
It's what you've been looking for.
Let's go.
They go to her car, and she starts coughing, to which he says this.
Better do something about that cough.
Very foreboding, very sinister, implying that it's all just gonna happen again. And just the implications of how this relationship would even work. Like, is she just a hallucination? Is she a physical entity? Can she exist outside of the town? And is it her intention to be sick and punish him? Or is she a real autonomous person who just has this unfortunate, side effect of being this manifestation? So that where she does just have to die. And also, something that I just thought about is that she's getting into the car with him. She's going to see Mary's dead body in the back right after James makes this comment about her cough. That's pretty disturbing. Then I like In Water even more, which is the one I got on my first playthrough, and the one that I was actively avoiding trying to get, but somehow I got it anyway, because they won't give me any damn health items. And of course I had to inspect that knife. When it cut to James in the car, I just felt devastated. But I love how they added this whole scene with him in the car talking to Mary. James is just so done with it all, and the pain and the guilt is just too much to bear.
Just can't go on without you. I know this isn't what you would want, but I guess it doesn't matter anymore. You're not here, are you?
I love this acknowledgement of him looking back at the back seats. Even though they don't fully show it, you know the implication. And then him driving off into the lake and then getting the letter reading. This makes the letter 10 times more impactful than in the Leave ending to me. I just sat back there just completely depressed and emotional as I'm seeing the letter sink into the ocean. But you know what was even better and more emotional, and my favorite ending in the game? Stillness. This should not have been a New Game Plus ending. It works too well and makes too much sense. And I think it would have been even more impactful for me to get on my first playthrough. It shouldn't be just left for a second playthrough where the player is taking the game less seriously. Here, it's pretty much a better extended version of In Water, where this time a vision of Mary appears in the back seat. James gets even more emotional here as he really breaks down, apologizing to Mary.
What's wrong, honey?
I miss you so much. I am sorry. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Will you wait for me?
James. I've always been waiting for you.
Luke Roberts is incredible, dude. This performance is legendary. That is peak. It's so good. It's so emotional. And then him looking down at the letter, and then the audio changing. You hear him open the door, meaning that he got out and didn't kill himself. And obviously the dialogue definitely alluded to that as well. This adds even more impact. It's such a good in-between between Leave and In Water, as he carries still that guilt and that pain, but he still chooses to live on. This type of emotion and acknowledgement of his guilt and his pain, that's exactly what I felt was left out of the Leave ending. But still clinging on to the hope and clinging on to Mary's wishes makes this even better than In Water as well as the emotional performance between both actors here in the scene. It's easily my favorite ending. Overall, this is a fantastic game. This is peak survival horror. All of its elements gel so well together. From the incredible art direction, soundtrack, the acting, and the gameplay, everything comes together to deliver an incredible experience. And at all the awards shows and stuff, it didn't really get too much credit, especially at the TGAs, but even still, this is definitely my favorite game of the year, with Astro Bot being a close second, by the way. That won Game of the Year, which is awesome. I really wanted Luke Roberts to win Best Performance, but I'm sure Melina Juergens was great in Hellblade as well. What really upset me was that it didn't get a nomination for art direction, which is crazy because the art direction makes this game what it is. This game makes me so excited for the future of the franchise. I cannot wait to see potentially another remake of Silent Hill 1. That would be a great remake to get. I've seen a lot of people shout out 4 to get a remake next as well. I mean, it would all be great. 1, 3, 4. It would be great to see those games remade in this style. And of course, the other Silent Hill games not made by Bluebird, like Silent Hill Townfall, can't wait to see that one. No Code is really great, really love Stories Untold. And of course, Silent Hill F looks super interesting. I can't wait to get more information on those games. But yeah, Silent Hill 2, to me, this was just a beautiful masterpiece of a game. One of my favorite games of all time.
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
Doesn't matter who I am. I am here for you, James. See?